Good evening. I'm Crimson with Shine a Light in the Dark, and I'm here with the amazing Austin and Lizzie. And they are going to do us such a great honor today of giving us a little moonlight. So I know that we have recently started a new podcast for intimacy. And one of the things I really love about that we were even kind of talking about a little earlier is that we're trying to bring the human back to human. So can you tell me a little bit about what the inspiration is for that? And as an artist, you're creating a world for your listeners. What world are you trying to create for them?
Well, Lizzie and I, we share a vision where we're trying to create a world of vulnerability and what that really looks like. And, I grew up in a single household. And so I, when you're growing up in a single household, I didn't see my father since I was like 8 or anything like that. Um, I just thought, okay, I come from a single parent, no big deal. And then when I see other people as I got older, middle school and high school and stuff, and I was like, wow, they're talking about their dad. And I had a sense of detachment about it, just something that I learned at that time to cope. And as I got older, I was like, okay, what is it about relationships that I need to work on because I keep getting the same pattern of, this is not working out. This is not, what do I need to do within myself in order to have better intimacy? And what is intimacy? Intellectual, emotional, physical, spiritual, so many different components than just sex. And I realized the more introspection and going within myself that I did, wanting to change myself, wanting to learn how to be better, wanting to learn from others who either they were blessed or privileged to have some type of functionality and or family upbringing, and I would learn and watch, how do they think, what is it that what skill set or tools were they given to as a child by their parents that, you know I just happen to not have had that. And it was such a long journey for me that was a big major part of coming to an opportunity to wanting to start intimacy. And it's spelled SEE on purpose because it's to challenge me with each guest we have, to learn from them and to learn and to also give the listeners an idea of, yeah, this is a doctor, this is a title, it's a title, it's a piece of paper, not to minimize the amount of work it takes to be a medical doctor or a lawyer or any accomplished person. It's a lot of work. However, they're human, and we want to humanize them, and we want to show our listeners, it's okay to be vulnerable and to share things that make you relatable. Weakness, vulnerability is a strength where many people feel like it's a weakness, and that is just a feeling that you can embrace. Weakness is our strength to me.
And this is the thing about Austin. Austin has this incredible ability to connect with people. And I don't know what it is about him. I feel so blessed that I was one of the people that was drawn to him. He has this big heart. He is so loving. He's truly a caretaking kind of person. And I think people see that genuine nature in him. And when we are interviewing these incredible guests on intimacy, we're able to really, peek behind the curtain. We get to see who they are in their soul, in their life. And ultimately, what it comes down to is creating that connection. And Austin is just incredible at making these wonderful connections with people, opening people up. He really makes people bloom and reveal those things about themselves that really unite us all. I mean, these are things that we may not consciously talk about, in our day-to-day
Yeah.
lives. Sometimes we have very superficial conversations. Oh, how are you? How's the weather? Oh my gosh, I saw that on TV too. Whatever it is. But when you get down to these really like intimate moments with people and you get to see who they are and where they've been and where they're going, it is such a profound feeling, and it's something that we're so excited to get to do.
I really love what you're doing, and I love how highly you speak of his ability to get to that like core part of the human soul, and like that both of y'all are working together to do that. What I really loved about it though is that you were almost talking about your own Phoenix moments, about like how your own challenges in life really, like, because I believe that we all have a choice, especially, I grew up in and out of foster care, so I can relate to having to teach myself almost everything I knew. And then I felt like I didn't have any of the tools that a lot of people had as I grew older, which is what made me want to be a therapist and start helping people gain tools. But I almost hear that kind of teacher coming out of you as well. That's like, how can I learn more about myself? How can I see other people more as human? But then also too, how can I make that something that instead of promotes division, promotes acceptance and unity to help us remember that we are still all souls on this journey together, that if we actually stopped looking for the differences and started seeing what was true between us, we could support each other and help each other grow. And so throughout that artistry, what is kind of that art form and where do y'all find y'all's catharsis in really trying to promote intimacy and seeing into that soul of the other individual? How does that help not only the other individual, but also y'all?
Oh, you got to hear from Austin. He is a creative at heart. I mean it.
I love the
thank you,
hype
Lizzie.
up.
And Lizzie, Lizzie's a very, very talented, amazing co-host with such a unique personality, and that's why I love you, Lizzie, and I love you as a best friend and as, for who you are. And I love that, the authenticity too. Um, I feel like I had to be my own teacher. And there's this common like phrase sometimes I hear people say, you have to be your own doctor sometimes, you have to take care of yourself. And yes, self-love and self-care is important, but I had to force the internal, I call it a her, my conscious voice, or my thoughts. I say she whispers, and I reference my conscience. She whispers, and she's my self-teacher, you know, where it's like, okay, I go through this role in my head of, okay, so let's look at this with the therapist. Well, first feel your feelings, because whenever you think of a memory, you don't want to look at it as a third pair of eyes, right? But so often I fell into the trap of looking at it with a third pair of eyes, because I had to analyze, okay, what is it that how should I adapt to work better with this type of system, or this friendship system, or this, workplace situation, or, and then I learned to, you have to feel your feelings, because for me, the opposite of depression is expression. And I had to learn the hard way, about that. And I'm so happy I did, and when I'm connecting, when I meet these people, a lot of them, I can understand them in a way, or I can pick up, I could feel the vibe, and sometimes it's not always easy. I'm like, ooh, you know, and that's where I tell myself that she whispers and she tells me, my conscience, this is where you need to try to have more compassion. This is where you need to have a working together skill set. This is where you need to take a moment, try to put yourself in their shoes, think about what kind of childhood did they come from, you know? And so much of it started with, nature too, because, I don't believe in littering. I believe, like, when I, move anywhere, I plant flowers for honeybees, because it's just to do my part in the ecosystem. And those little things that you can do at the store can get you so in tune with nature. And when I'm at the beach, if I saw a plastic, like big plastic bag, just go up on shore at the beach, a beautiful beach, and there were people around and they were just staring at it, but they were like a few feet away. And I turned and I saw it and I was like, okay, bystander effect. Are they gonna pick it up? Should I pick it up? And I just felt this
Mm-hmm.
anger of I'm so disappointed. I'm like, and I just went, picked it up and threw it out, you know? And those little moments taught me the most amount of skill set of just being more in tune with the environment around me, and not being prone towards escapism and just being grounded. I feel like being grounded is to respect nature around you. And the more you respect nature, the more you respect yourself, because we are nature. We're made from nature. We come from nature and we go back, and it's just there's so much into it that I incorporate, and that has to do with my spiritual beliefs as well.
I feel like nature is a form of artistry. And I see that, in every conversation we have and every time we get together, I see that, there is that little piece of nature that comes out of you. You know how many beautiful plants you've planted for these honeybees? It's incredible. And they're gorgeous and they're lush. And, I feel like the way that he gives back to the world around him, I have not met too many people like Austin that does this. And I feel like that caretaking nature is a form of art. It is a form of self-care as well. It's also a spiritual practice, and in the same light, I'm also a nature girl, It's something where that's a big connection that we have. And what's the funny thing for me is so many of our guests we have on, they also have that little pull in them as well. But the other thing, is music. We love to listen to music. That's a big thing with us too. It really drives us together.
You're so right, Lizzie. It does drive us together. I'm so happy you said that, because music is like it's like a crack in the window into the soul, It just moves us in such a way. It's like
You
going
know
to a
what's
football
funny?
game or a soccer game and everyone's just cheering for the same thing. It's like when you hear that song, everyone's cheering for yeah.
Everybody becomes a comrade. Everyone comes together. Like, we're all cheering for the same team. It pulls us, to the common thread, the common connection. And one of the things, I've been listening, I'm gonna tell you, I'm an old school girl. I like to have some throwbacks, right? Well, what I've been listening to right now is some Tracy Chapman. I don't know if you've heard of her. She had her self-titled album back in 1988. And I don't know why, but I've been looking at all the crazy things that are happening in the world. And we've talked about this so many times, Austin. Like, why can't people just, figure out a way to come together? And there's a song that she wrote. It's called Talking About a Revolution. And in this song, it talks about, it's very cathartic. It's very telling about the world that we're living, and it's still very relevant. But it talks about, as much as people are divided, things are changing and people can come together and build amity. And that's ultimately one of the things that I think the world is going through, these difficulties, and we're noticing this and we're talking about it. But it's also a way that people can come together. It's listening to music like that. It's a reminder of the things that are to come, the things that have been, and the things, that we can do today to build a better world, better
No,
relationships with each other.
That's what I
I
love about you, Lizzie, too, is that you always remind me of the bigger picture of so much more, of like coming together. It's the revolutionary aspect of it too. So I appreciate your perspectives on that so much. I really do.
I got
Like the
I
greater
gotta be
whole of
honest though.
humanity.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I feel like I have a way of looking at things in a very like overarching way, but you get down to the nitty gritty, and I'm gonna be honest, you have better taste in music than me. At the end of the day, I love your
That's because
soundtrack
I'm
way
gay,
more than
but I'm
mine.
just
For real.
you never
There's
went
so
to a
many
gay club and
times.
they had bad music ever.
That's true. That is so
It's
true.
I'm just saying.
It's fair. Crimson, it's amazing for me because one of the things that Austin and we talk about all the time is just like I'm always getting text messages from him where he's like sending me little hype up songs. He's like, "Oh, you going to the gym? You need to listen to this. Are you feeling this mood? You need to have a little cry? Have this. You need to listen to this. Get it out of your system, girl." And I just love it. And even like in those moments, when you're not together, just having that little connection through music is always something that it gives you a smile, it gives you hope, it gives you something to look forward to, and it brings you closer, even though you're not in the same room with somebody. It connects you. It's that thread that connects you.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I wanted to hit on a couple of points that you were talking about earlier too, like even about like nature and kind of life and just like actually seeing the bigger picture of life and understanding and compassion. Through music, I think that music is one of those things that interconnects us. They talk about like, there's an old saying about artistry. It says the job of an artist is like that of a lover, to teach you about the things of yourself that you've never, to show you a world you never knew existed and to teach you about yourself in a way that you never knew. And so through artistry, you're constantly learning about yourself. Like for instance, my daughter, when she was younger, one of the main things that really got me so into music, because me and my son, we always connected through video games. Me and my daughter, we always connected through music, but me growing up in and out of foster care, I didn't have the best emotional expression growing up. My actual emotional expression range was crap, to say the least, because I was raised in a world where being vulnerable was weak. It would get you eaten. You couldn't do those things in order
Yeah.
to stay safe. You just couldn't. And unfortunately, that's something since I had my son at 14 and my daughter shortly after that carried on in a cycle in my family. Um, but my daughter, as I started healing and growing and wanted to become a counselor and really like working on myself, she would go to me and she'd be like, Mom, I don't know how to express how I feel, but here's this song. Listen to this song. Or I don't know what these words are to me, but listen to this because I didn't know how I felt, but this song explains how I felt. And then I began to realize that, as a therapist, I'm bound by time and space. I get one person per hour, but music is not bound by time nor space.
Mm-mm.
At one point in time, just like when you're like hyping each other up and sending each other these songs, right? That artist is healing you in a way that they are not aware of who you are, but you are acutely aware of who they are and acutely aware of the difference and the impact that they are making in not only your surroundings, but in every part of your essence, your being, your soul, and your life. And if you think
Yeah.
about it, sound is actually the message of the universe itself. We survive in vibration and sound and frequency. Even the
Oh my
resonance of your
gosh.
voice is music. That's why
I can't
sometimes you
believe
can
you just
talk
said
to a
that.
soul.
I can't
Why?
believe you
What's
just
up?
said that either. That was just
Well,
like,
you know what Austin said? Literally, Austin, tell him what you said to me. Tell her what you said. That, sound travels, through
oh
time, through
yes,
space. That was
yes.
crazy. Like when she said
Oh
that,
my
I
God,
was like, oh my, this is like one of those soul
I
time
did, yeah.
moments. I really feel like that. Because you said, like, literally, I want to say like 2 days ago, he's like, you
Really?
said to me, he's like, sound travels, it doesn't matter where you are, even after we're gone, that sound is going to pass on and it's going to make ripples through the universe. And I was just
Oh,
like, when he
the
said
pep
that,
the
uh-huh,
pebble in the
uh-huh.
pond.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
was like, oh my
Oh
God.
gosh, that's what I was thinking too, but I forgot. Like,
I
yeah,
was like, that
because
was
when
great.
she
We
was
had
saying that,
this
I was like,
whole
she's
thing.
channeling. Like, that's the universe. Because I one of the things that I right now I can remember from was that I told Lizzie, I was like, the universe or our spirit guides, they communicate back to us through sometimes other people. We just have to practice listening and hearing.
Yeah.
Because the second part is so hard sometimes. It's just
Right.
hearing, you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes,
I just
I'm
can't believe you
so
said that.
happy you
I'm
brought that
shocked.
up.
I'm shocked.
No, I
That's so,
actually like that gave me kind of like goosebumps when you said that because like I believe like, honestly, like a lot of the work that I personally feel like I do is I try to channel that my spirit guides or what I feel like I'm supposed to say. But I also one of the hardest things has been to learn when they're talking to me through others. Because if you listen, certain things will just come around constantly that you're like, really? Like, why did that keep like I remember when I was first even talking about meditation. I was like, maybe I should start learning how to meditate. I go to the grocery store. Somebody behind me is like, yeah, I went to this great meditation book. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. I got you. I got your number, whatever.
mm-hmm,
Go here. Hey, I did this cool meditate. And I'm like, are you trying to tell me something at this point? Like, am I supposed to really be in med? And then I run into somebody else. And then just for some reason, I'm just at the grocery store checking out. And I'm like, hey, how are you doing? And they're like, I'm great. And I'm like, no, how are you really doing? Like,
mm-hmm.
not your everyday, I have to be okay answer. How are you doing as a
Yeah.
soul? Because I have this rule when I'm checking out at stores, nobody's allowed to talk to me except for whoever that person is, because I have 5 minutes to make a
Okay.
difference in their life. I have all day to talk to my children and make a difference in theirs. So I'm like, no, what does this person, what does this soul in front of me need right now in this moment? And so I love how you were talking too about even like learning to listen to those around you, because if we learn to listen to those around, we realize that there are certain things that come in our vibration, because it's almost like our voice itself, like we're talking about soul family and drawing things in. They talk about the most powerful frequency in the world is authenticity. So many times we live with a mask on that we don't even realize that the reason we attract kind of karmic relationships and things like that is because we're attracting things to a mask, not to our real selves. So, of course, when we
Yeah.
try to drop our guard and be real with them, they don't accept us because that's not who they made an agreement with. They made an agreement with the masked version of you. So they accepted that version. And so then we feel hurt, like, oh my God, nobody accepts the real me. Well, nobody came into agreement with the real you. They came into agreement with somebody else. If I
Mm.
signed a contract with, Jay, and I really didn't realize I signed one with Leonard, I'm going to be a little upset that I signed one with Leonard. Not because Leonard's bad, but because I didn't know I signed a contract with him.
You're like, who's
But if I went
Leonard? Oh
into
my
Mm-hmm.
it
goodness.
knowing
Mm-hmm.
exactly, and so it's kind of funny. Like I love that y'all said that.
No, the
And
mask is completely, and I posted on my Instagram couple months ago. I can't remember exactly when, but it was a mask, and it was a mask, and it had oracle cards around it. It had me holding a mirror, and it was like foggy, and then the rainbow was coming through the mirror, hitting the crystal ball or card area, but at the same time, in the bottom left corner, there was the reflection of the mirror, and it was just a mask with black eyes, like void, you know,
yeah,
because that's exactly how I was feeling. Was like I was like peeling away, like, what is this, mask? Because the oracle cards at that time were just, sometimes they have that earthly component of our own unconscious, subconscious things of the symbolism sometimes is a repeat message of something within us, that we need to let out that authentic self. We need to peel out that mask because that mask is just void. It's not
yeah,
even real. It doesn't have a living soul like we authentically do, you know. And I feel like we don't even give ourselves credit for our higher self, which is our soul self, separate from the physical flesh, the one that's, you know, carries all those past life memories, because I've also done past life um regressions with
Progression.
yeah,
yes, yeah, with a therapist before. And, just learning sometimes, like, it's like whenever I have a thought or a feeling or situation, I'm like, okay, there I get I like I organize it. So where's the root of this coming from? This thought, this feeling, why? And then broke it down. And it's sometimes those are masks we carry from other lifetimes, or sometimes other lifetimes sometimes mean to some people their present life in this world, this current time right now is just when they were in their 40s, that was a different lifetime,
yeah,
you know? So,
But
but
I
those
think it
masks are
also
so
comes,
powerful.
it's true. I mean, also, I cannot agree with you more. And Crimson, one of the things I was thinking about is, it is something that you can pull from another life and you can carry forward. And I do believe that this is a reality for a lot of people. It's just unconscious. But there's also
yeah,
battles and traumas that they're experiencing in this life that, much like what you talked about, Crimson, that it's maybe not even consciously, people put on the mask every day. And what's funny is, like, at the end of the day, if you ever find yourself wearing that mask, doesn't it feel good at the end of the day to rip it off? You to be yourself, to unmask and just, be yourself. That's something that I think Austin I've been working actively on, is trying to, like, wear the real face, wear the real deal
Hmm.
person on your sleeve. And I think ultimately better things happen in this life when you get to that real person underneath. You're showing your authentic face, and you get to be somebody that you want to be, and it changes everything about the dynamic of your life. You just feel better. Things start happening for you that you didn't think were possible when you live authentically and you live, like, with your real face, facing outward. You have real connections with
yeah,
people, and then I think ultimately that's what builds the foundation for a better world, a better connection with people, and a better relationship with you in this life, and the many more that are to come.
No, I agree with that. So I have a question for y'all because this is just kind of how I want to tie this in. And I don't know why I just felt that. But what is the most dangerous part of a parasite? Do y'all know?
The most dangerous part of a parasite. That's such an open. I just
There's so many thoughts on
I
that.
don't know, and I want to know. I want to know what is the most dangerous part of a parasite. Is it just? I would love to know. What do you think, Lizzie?
I mean, depends on what kind of parasite.
Yes, that was
Any
my next
parasite.
question. I was like, what kind of parasite? But then I was like, it could be an allegory. I don't know. It could be a.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't
any
know.
parasite
I'm
is
excited
that
to
the
find
point
out.
of it being a parasite is that I don't know I have it.
Oh,
Ooh,
So then I go to the
that was
wow.
doctor.
deep.
I go to a real doctor, right? And this doctor is like, I'm like, hey, doc, fix me. Doc's like, okay, start doing this, start doing these, start meditating or start working out or start eating better or start doing this. And I'm doing all these things, but I'm suddenly getting pissed off because I'm doing all these good things, but I'm feeling worse because I don't realize there's a parasite in me. So the stronger I get, actually, the more the parasite gets to eat, the more I'm feeding him. So the worse I
Uh-huh.
actually feel. So I'm actively fighting and trying to feel better. And I'm trying and I'm trying and I'm trying. I'm doing everything, but I'm coming super freaking exhausted because of the fact that everything that you're telling me to do that is right, by the way, is actually feels like it's killing me more. The funny part about a parasite is I can run every lab. I used to work in a lab before I became a therapist. I could run
Oh my
every
gosh, that's
test on the
awesome.
world on you. You will not know that you have a parasite unless I run a specific test for parasites. You can't see it in your blood work. You just can't. You have to know it's there. How this ties into what we're talking about is I can't fight an unknown enemy. If I don't know it's there, I can't fight it. And from the time we're born, we're taught so many lies about ourselves. You're not pretty enough. You're not smart enough. You're not good enough. You're not strong enough. Oh, you're too loud. You're too weak. You're too meek. You're too this. You're too that. And so it forces us to put on all these masks to be the, oh, well, you say I'm not strong enough, so let me bulk up, let me be strong, let me never be vulnerable. Because you'll never catch me slacking. Oh, that's gonna get me eaten. Okay, let me put on this other mask. And they're so untrue to who we really are. Because like when I realized, like when I was growing up in and out of foster care and all the bad situations that I was in, I had this mask that was like this tough person to where nobody would mess with me. But inside, I was really just shaken with fear. Like, how hard can I project that I'm a beast for you to understand not to
Hmm.
mess with me? But the part of me really was like,
This,
I just want somebody to love me. The true me was like, I just want somebody to love me and take care of me and just be there. But I couldn't actually show the real me. And so from the time we're born, that parasite teaches us these things about us. Oh, here's another mask. But the problem is that we begin to wear them for so long that we don't even realize that we are not them anymore.
it becomes like a second skin to you. It becomes so
Exactly.
close
We
to you.
don't
It feels like
recognize
the
in the
real skin.
mirror. Exactly. We don't even recognize it's a mask. So we sit there and we're like, no, I'm being authentic. I'm being strong. I'm being brave. But is that really your authentic self? And is that really what your true nature wants to show? Or is that what your fear and your parasite has convinced you have to show?
And you know, that's why I want to mention so much about Lizzie and I is that we are not experts in relationships or intimacy. We are going along the journey as much as our listeners, and we both like remind each other, hey, we're growing with our relationship and as co-hosts together, and with how we grow from episode 1 to episode 12 season 1,
Yeah.
everything, like we're just growing through this, and that's okay to make mistakes because
Yeah.
and that's okay. And she's gonna probably lift the mask, I'm gonna lift the mask, we're gonna lift the mask together with guests, with you, with other. I mean,
I'm
that's
still
what
lifting
growth
masks. I
is.
mean,
Not to
Hmm.
shame it, not to feel like, okay,
exactly.
this person's saying that there's masks out here, you know, because I know I used to feel like, oh man, there's masks. Like I have masks. Like, oh, is this a bad thing? Is this a good thing? Like, is it okay
Yeah.
to say, oh, I might have some? Like, people feel like they're so scared to label themselves because of like, oh, he says he or she or they say they have masks,
You
and
know,
it's like
yeah.
people are pointing a finger at you, but they have three fingers pointing back at them, you
Yeah.
know.
Through my own
That's
journey, I
so,
have learned. Oh, I'm so sorry.
no, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say through my own journey, I've learned that I had so many masks that my mask had masks and those had masks and then those had some masks and I didn't, at first I used to beat myself up about it, but then I realized that each mask was created for a specific purpose in life, and its objective was to keep you safe. And at that point and at that space and time in your life, you don't know what you don't know. So you can't fault yourself for not knowing information. But the part of it that's beautiful is that you continue to learn and grow and absorb and look into yourself and realize, like, where are these spaces that I can still be more true to myself? Where can I find out where I'm not being vulnerable or where sometimes fear, stops me from being vulnerable? To this day, I have to challenge myself and I'm like, oh, like I need to be vulnerable here. But I'm like, hey, that's really uncomfortable, man. Like, my mask is so much nicer. Can't I just like real quick and just like act like this didn't happen? But is the realizing that we all have them. And so there's nothing wrong with it. And we do need them for certain times and spaces. There are certain spaces that it's not the safest to be the most vulnerable,
You
right?
know
Like
what I feel
sometimes we
like?
really do need them.
Yeah, you're right. But I also feel like the most telling time, this has happened to Austin a lot recently is, I don't know what's been going on, but we've been crying a lot.
Yeah,
We've been
we
having some
cry with
tears.
each,
It's
yes,
this moon,
we
And,
man.
do.
it's very cathartic. It opens up like, it opens up those doorways into yourself and into better relationships, I had a very weird experience the other day. We did one of our it was actually our first podcast. We had just finished it. We were wrapping it up and we had such a good conversation and I had a deja vu moment and I felt like I was in the right place at the right time, like I had lived that moment before. And it was so visceral and real. And I got scared because it was so powerful. And it was scary in a good way. But Austin and I are sitting there, on FaceTime, and all of a sudden he just goes, like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I
Yeah,
was
she had this
telling him,
expression on her face, like, and I was like, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna pass out like Wendy Williams style? Like, when she was with the, the Statue of Liberty?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Like, she's like that, and then and that's like she didn't go like that, but her
yeah, no, I
eyes and
didn't
her
pass out.
face, and she didn't like sway or anything. But it was like one of those situations when you're looking at someone, you're like, what's wrong?
And it kind of like that feeling, it like reverberated into Austin, and he got a little
Hmm.
teary eyed because he felt it. It wasn't just something that was for me to experience. It was that reverberation, that sound that went from me, from some part of my soul or my mind, into him, and he felt it. And it
I did.
was it was so wild. I mean, because then it was like I was having this experience, and all of a sudden it hit him. And it's so strange how it's something that is so rare and so um, unique in that moment, especially when you have a very powerful experience like that. It shapes your relationship. It shapes the direction that you go in.
It
Um,
does. And
yeah.
just to help, our the listeners understand what she means by it hit me, or like the energy frequency hit me, was, after I realized, so people have an image of, like the Wendy Williams face, not the body like falling or anything, but
Yeah.
like that. And she was just looking at me. Lizzie was just looking at me when we finished the episode, and I was like, we were just like midway, just random conversation, and she's like, and then she's like, Austin. I was like, what is it? Are you feeling something? What's going on? And then a few seconds later, my bones, that's the depth of the
Oh,
feeling, came across, and it was one of purity, goodness, and an unknown force. And by force, I mean not a authority force. I mean a, a push in the right direction. And I asked her, I think we just had a psychic
it
impression.
it was wild. It was
Hmm.
wild.
And I asked her, what did you feel? Can you describe in detail the feeling, the imagery, the anything? because I felt that experience, that energy I've never felt before, and I'm thousands of miles away in another state, you know, and she described it, and I said to her, so symbolically, would you think that that's like a signpost of there's this person I met or this situation? Because I'm sure a lot of people will have or might have had these experiences, and
Yeah.
it's like, and Lizzie described something back to me that I thought was phenomenal when I said signpost.
For me, it was something that like you never like, walk in a room, you feel like you've been there before. That's like traditional deja vu. The signpost, it was like a landmark. It's like a landmark, when you drive down the road, you're so familiar with that, that rock or that, the Y in the road, wherever you're gonna go. But it really felt like on this journey, like this is a landmark that we're passing by. And I feel like I've taken this road before, but I've never been on this road before. And what kind of came to me in Austin, I feel like is we're on the same road. It's not a parallel path, it's the same road, but we're thousands of miles apart. And there's some weird connection that, it made us feel like we're on the right path and that we're doing something bigger than just a podcast. It's such an incredible feeling when you get those reminders from the universe, and sometimes they come in a very, sensory form. It doesn't necessarily come in the sense of like, you get a calling card in the mail or like a phone call. Sometimes you literally get it through chills in your body or through a premonition or through a feeling. And that feeling, it can reverberate, across time and space. And that's ultimately what happened to us. This just happened, a couple days ago. And for us, it's just been an experience that this is just one of many unique correlations in our lives where we've had these connections. And I think we have built such a strong relationship. He's my best friend. And when you have that kind of connection with somebody, a lot of people, they wake up in the middle of the night, they know when something's wrong, they know when something good has happened. When you love somebody, you care about somebody so much, you have that connection. You somehow can just know what's going on with the other person, and you can feel them. And that's something that it is such a blessing that we've been able to experience these things together. And I just know on this journey, we're going on a new road.
I think I
And
looked at you after that, and I was crying. I was crying, and you saw
Oh, you
my
were you were
tears.
crying.
Uh-huh. I was crying, and you saw my tears, and you looked at me like, like you saw, I
Yeah,
guess a mask was lifted, there you go.
it really
That
was.
was a
Yeah,
mask.
there.
And I just figured it out. I was like, okay, me not crying, detached, just finish something. And then me
Yeah,
crying, I was like, okay, there's a bridge I gotta build. But but and you looked at me, and that's when I think we cemented how much these episodes mean to us, this
yeah,
podcast, is that I said to you, I said, Lizzie, if anything ever happened to me, do you promise to continue this? And you said,
yeah.
absolutely. And it's not like, oh, I feel something's going to happen to me. They were just talking about some
No,
psychic stuff. Now they're saying, no, I'm not. Okay. I'm just saying that we had such a strong emotional, spiritual upliftment, upgrade, whatever you want to call it or label it, that it was like we understood without it being put into verbal words or any type of spiritual enlightenment feeling. It was just understood at our minds
yeah,
at that time. This is something you have to continue for
it
whatever
is.
reason. It's greater than yourselves, and we always acknowledge, like, yeah, we must have guardian angels or spirit guides watching over this
yeah.
podcast, because the way that these guests find us, we're booked out. I'll be honest, we are booked out.
Uh-huh.
We're looking at middle of season 2 for, okay, well, that's gotta be like number 15 number, because I don't, question, I don't look for specific people. I'm just, Lizzie and I, we are just open, and I'm telling you, people will just, this is number 3, this is number 4, this is number 5, and then this one guest, who for one of the episodes, that number meant something in their
Yeah.
spiritual religious religious background, and that was the number of a road opener, and that was so important to them. I was like, well, this is just how it happened, you know. And
It's it's not even just happening to us, it's happening to our guests. That's what's
mhm,
wild, is that
that's
we're
what's
sitting
even
there.
more wild.
Well,
He just, yeah,
there's this kind of thing that when y'all were talking, I don't know why I just felt like in my soul to say this is like we talk about like the relationship in the 3D all the time, what we can see. But some souls have such a spiritual connection and they've been like y'all found each other, y'all are cousins, like,
yeah,
like how did we know, right? That even beyond what is living, like there's that spiritual connection. Like, for instance, my nanny was what I considered my protector when I was younger. She was my grandmother. I come from a long line of orphans from women. She would keep me safe when my mom was drunk. This is before foster care started. She actually
uh,
died in bed with me when I was like 6 years old. And it was because I wished that she would die that night, and then she did. And it was really, it's an experience that I've gotten over. But anyway, long story short, she was Native American, and she used to say that her spirit guide was the owl. When my mom died, my
uh,
mom had almost died off and on throughout my entire life. So I had heard that she was going to die like since I was like 5. Every time I turned around, the woman was fixing to die. Well, one day I went outside. They told me that she had died. She had actually died this time, and she had been dead for 7 minutes, and that she came back. And I was like, huh, that's a little awkward. Well, I go outside and an owl's staring at me, and I'm like, what are you doing on my porch, buddy? I've lived here for years. I've never seen you. Go back inside, ignore it. The next day, there are 2 owls. Then there are 3, then there are 4. And then I go to my mom, and she's what they consider brain dead and completely dead. She's not even supposed to be alive anymore. And I didn't want to pull the plug because a part of me felt like if I pulled the plug, that I was pulling the plug on something that I was trying to get rid of. Even though I had forgiven her and I loved her, but she was also a pain in my ass, pardon my French. Loved her to death, but I didn't want any of that animosity of the life that she had given me to make that decision. And so I couldn't do it. And I remember going in the waiting room and I was praying with the staff and the nurses. And I was like, please, God, don't make me make this decision. It'll destroy me. It'll destroy the part of my soul that I believe is innocent that is left. I go in there, we pull the plug. The first thing she said to me is, I came back so that you didn't have to make that decision. And she would have never heard that prayer. She heard it in front of both. My children were standing right there, which is why they're so much of firm believers themselves, because they're like, how did grandma hear that? And she was supposed to have been brain dead when she came back. And then I was like, oh, well, good, she's going to live through this. But I realized really quickly she wasn't, because the next day 3 owls came, then 4, then 5. Then the owls kept coming and coming. And I was like, okay, what is going on with these owls? So much so that the neighbors are like, what is going on with these owls? I've lived here my whole life and there's never even been owls in our area. And owls are normally solitary creatures, so you wouldn't.
yeah,
And I have pictures of them too. But the morning she did pass away, because the day before I was trying to put her on hospice, and they were like, oh, she's not sick enough for hospice. She's not going to die. She'll be fine. You need to take her home tomorrow. I'm like, no, you don't understand. She's dying. Like, she's going to die tomorrow. Like, you don't understand. Well, the morning she died, about right before I got the phone call that she had finally passed away, I was getting dressed. I was fixing to head up there. I opened the door. My carport was filled with owls. There's probably about 20 owls on the carport.
Oh
I was
oh
my
like,
my
she's dead.
gosh.
God, that's
And then all of a
phenomenal.
sudden I hear my phone ring. I run to the end to the house, and they were like, your mom just died. And I was like, for some reason though, I knew it. And after she passed away, one owl came that night to say goodbye to me. And it was actually pecking at our camera and this was the thing about these owls, is they were getting my attention. Like, they would go to our porch camera. We're like, hey, I'm here. Like, come outside and notice me, acknowledge me. And then they never came back. And so through it all, through very spiritual significances in my life, the owls always come, which is my nanny, which I believe my soul, when she died in bed keeping me warm that night, a part of our souls are tied through time, through space, and through existence. And my mom used to always say that she talked to people through butterflies, or that God sent her messages through butterflies. And after my mom passed away was when the butterflies started following me. Every time I would do something really good, and I'd be like, hey, mom, I'm breaking the cycles in our family that everybody said that we could never do. Because I'm the first person to even have a high school diploma in my family. And I would get sad because I don't have any family. Like, my mom, like I said, I come from a line of orphans, so I don't have family. I have the man that raised me as my father, which is an amazing man, but I would get sad sometimes. And then almost every time a butterfly will come and land on me, and the butterfly will come to make me feel better. And even when I opened my company in January and I was really nervous about it, the butterflies were just everywhere. And,
I think that make me cry.
and the funny thing was about that is I didn't even realize that the day that I had signed all the paperwork and the 2 weeks that it would take to get everything done from when I quit my job to open the company, the 2-day date mark actually fell on my mother's birthday.
Oh my gosh. Just
I,
confirmation after confirmation.
So,
isn't that so?
and I wanted to tell y'all like that spiritualness, like you were saying, like even if I wasn't here, tell me that you would finish it. Even if I didn't, what
I
happened?
just saw a butterfly. I just saw a butterfly. Literally, a giant monarch just flew by. I'm not kidding. I mean, that, I'm sorry, these gave me chills. I just almost died
Oh,
right
I'm
there.
just another confirmation. And I was just about to say about, you know, my mother was the only family I had and still have. And my whole father's side of the family abandoned me. They're the Lebanese side. Um, because of me just being gay, and my dad just was just didn't want to be a father, honestly, just physically, emotionally, like just was never there. And you know when I have found out through the grapevine that this person passed, I started to light a white candle once or twice a week for them. And I said, now that you're on the other side, you see things with a 360 perspective. So why don't we all get together here, and one of you have to choose, like on the spirit world, who's going to be the person that gets up from the conference table and goes to the whiteboard and write, okay, this is what we need to work on for our living relative right now, you know. And one of the things I have learned is when I talk to them in a prayer format, which is just me having a conversation with my deceased relatives and saying, I need help with this, I need help with that, my she whispers conscience says we can do this together. And the togetherness is what's important. And I have learned so much, and just meeting so many people after I've started to acknowledge and respect my deceased relatives, whoever they are, whoever they were. um, I have met many people like you that have described instances since then when I opened up myself to that part of the universe. And it's just finding a community and a tribe, right? Isn't that the feeling you get, Crimson? Like that
Yeah.
sense, have you met other people like that?
Yeah,
So, oh, I'm sorry. Were you talking to me or?
Yes, you.
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I have. When I when I opened myself up, I'll never forget when I first started because I was when my mom died, I was a person really bound by logic because I didn't understand a lot of the pain and stuff that I had went through. So I was very bound by logic. I was very spiritual, but very bound by logic. And when she died, my mom always said something was following her, like something that was horrid was following her. All of a sudden, I knew what it meant because weird things, bad things started happening in my life that just felt like attack after attack after attack after attack. But anyway, long story short is I kept it all to myself for a very, very, very long time because being who I am, very bound by logic, a lot of times I was surrounded by people who were very logical and not very spiritual. So my spiritualness was kind of like, ew, that's kind of weird. That's kind of woo-woo, like, eh. But when I actually started taking off the mask and just not caring anymore, and really just being true to the authentic nature of who I was and what I believed and the way I saw the world and the way that God spoke to me. Like I would ask, I'd be like, okay, God, if I'm on the right path, send me a butterfly. A butterfly would fly by. And I'm like, that's cute. That's a monarch. Those are kind of common
I
in our
think,
area. Could you like be a little bit more specific? And so then this black
uh-huh.
butterfly comes and flies and lands on my nose. And then it goes and it lands on my head. And I'm like, okay, touche. I get you know, I guess what I'm saying is once I started really opening myself to that and asking for signs and being like, hey, help me, show me the way, I started realizing that there were signs constantly all around me that I number one wasn't taking in before. And number two, there were so many people that actually were like me that I wasn't a freak of nature, that I wasn't just
Yeah,
somebody that was seeing the signs in the universe or feeling nature, feeling like I should pick up that bag off the beach when nobody else would, or that I should make a change when nobody else gave a damn. because I'm sitting here like, why is it that I feel like I should pour my soul into everyone and everybody around me feels like they should just take it? And then I started
And
realizing
mhm,
that
Yeah.
there were people like that
mhm,
weren't just takers, that had been through similar
yes,
instances, but it
yes.
took removing my mask enough to remember that I had to be vulnerable. And that was when I realized that the biggest lie I was ever taught was that I had to be strong because vulnerability was what was going to get me killed. But it was actually my greatest gift to be vulnerable.
Because you were so strong. Because like there's like 2 points. So you touched upon the part where people think, well, those people who are, into omens and signs and feeling nature, they're lost, they're confused. No, they're not. What they're doing is they're allowing intuition to be their guide, and logic catches up instead of logic being the guide and direction that most people are taught to use, and then intuition can follow up later or catch up later. They just reversed it
Yeah.
because so many people are just, they're tired or they're bored or they're worn out of the logic first method, because sometimes it just doesn't get their dreams. And so many people have dreams and not all those dreams become a reality. And that's so sad. It is. And
Yeah.
they just want to take that chance and let's try it this way from now on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something that comes with that experience, where you're looking at through the lens of everyone wants to make a rational decision. They want to make the right decision, but when you let your soul guide you, you let your heart, your intuition, the whisper, listen, that you're listening to in your heart, your mind, your soul. If you listen to that, you let that guide you. I think that ultimately, it can give you better results for where you want to be and where you want to go. And also, you talk about the signs, listening to the signs. I'm still in shock. I saw this. I mean, I don't know. It was like a beautiful, big, fat, but I've never seen one like that
Right
thick
after we talked about the
on.
butterfly too.
I
You
literally was in
waited
shock. I
until
was like,
right
I
until we talked
can't
I
about
love
it to
believe.
come
Lizzie's
by.
spiritual
I was like,
moments. I love them.
there's your message. I think that was a message for you. I was just like, are you kidding me? I was in shock. But I mean, here's the other thing I think about. Do you think nature knows? Like, do you think the owls knew? Do you think they're harbingers? Do you think the butterflies know? Are they our little messengers? You know how back in the day we had, the carrier pigeon. They sent us, so many connective notes across time and history. They have literally been the go-between across nations and times. And do you feel like these symbols from nature, these creatures from nature, do you think that they're more connected to the spirit world? Do they speak on our behalf? And are they closer to those intuitive senses? And should we be tapping into more of those things?
That's a great question. Yes, that's my question for you too. Like
So, not to
that,
get
the
biblical
owls.
about it, but like, so in the Bible, it says that, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can command the mountain to move. And it also says that God makes us exactly in his image, which means we exactly have his power, but our human mind limits us from being able to do the things that we're supposed to do. Once we return to spirit, though, we actually have returned to that part of our power. Like, if an angel is made in God's image, and we know that angels come down with wings, and if we want to think of it in that kind of way, right? They have all
Yeah,
of his power because they are his reflection, which means that he gave, and he tells us that he gave all this power to us as well. We just have to believe it's true. That's why we can speak it into existence. And the funny thing is if you think about it, between everything, we're all talking about the same thing. And some Christians may hate me for saying this, but some people call it prayer, other people call it manifestations, other people call it spell work, other people call it, meditation. We're all speaking to nature in some kind of way because we know that it can hear us. And if you think about it, if you really go out there and respond to nature, you notice it responds back. It is actually listening to you. It is trying to show you it exists. But people are always like, oh, well, when you talk to God, you got to be really nice. Or when you talk to spirit, and I call it spirit more because I don't really believe in the religious part of, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. I believe in the spirit. I just always called him God, just because that's where
yeah,
um my upbringing came from. But when everybody's like, well, you can't talk to spirit. You have any idea how many times I'm like, okay, God, I hate you right now. Like you are being a pain in my butt and I don't approve of what you're doing. Like, could you please show me
Mhm.
why? And I've realized that in those moments, God's like, I'm so glad you asked me why, because now you're looking for me to show you the signs of why you're listening. I can now teach you. I can now tell you why these things are happening. You can now see the bigger picture, but you can't see the bigger picture until you start asking the questions, until you start asking what's going on, because I can tell you the answer all day long, but if you're not listening for if you're not looking for the answer, you're never going to see it. So now that you've gotten mad or you've gotten upset or you start speaking or asking, hey, show me these things, the universe can start working with you. It can start showing you signs because the whole time it wanted to. And I believe that our ancestors on the other side, after they pass away, just like I believe my nanny and my mother are strongly with me because I feel them and sense their spirit all the time. And when I talk about them, they tend to come. And so it's like, I know that it's happened so many times that that can't be a coincidence. And I am
Yeah.
an extremely logical person. So my logical mind, just like with the first butterfly, I'm like, cool, I live in the middle of the country and that was a monarch. Like, that's real nice. Like, could we like, and God's like, okay, fine, you stupid little skeptic. And I feel like that's how he talks to me sometimes because
Uh-huh.
he's like, yeah, you just have to be so skeptical, don't you? And I'm like, well, please humor me. And he will because he wants to show us, and because spirit wants to show us, or our ancestors, that there is something on the other side that is constantly trying to guide us. Like since my mother died, I've had some of the strangest experiences happen, and they just so consistently happen. They can't happen that often and just be a coincidence.
Yeah.
It defies the realm of coincidence because coincidence means I've happened a couple of times. Not that I happen on a really consistent basis constantly. And so, with all of my heart and all of my soul and all of my being, and that's why when I feel something on my soul, I've gotten to where I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to talk about it. Because even if it was a message that wasn't for today, it'll be a message that was for next week or whenever they were supposed to have heard it and they were supposed to go back to it. But I was who was supposed to deliver it. Because if I tie that back to music,
Yeah.
it's the vibration of our voice. Even the monks, like when we talk about chakra attunements and stuff, right? The
Yeah.
was doing different resonations and different tones in order to clear different energy parts of the body. And it says that in the Bible, if you want to even tie that biblically and spiritually, that the seraphim sing all day in heaven to keep the negative energy out of heaven. And it says that every time you hear God, you say the power of his voice was what you heard. And if you speak, the mountains will move. Not if you think the mountains will move, but if you speak, the mountains will move. He tells us that there's power in the vibration of our voice, which means that if authenticity is the most powerful of all of the vibrations in the world, then speaking through it, that's why when somebody speaks with such authentic, real trueness, your soul vibrates for it because it feels that and it knows it and it resonates at a level that's almost undeniable. Yes, music is healing and music heals us, but it's the power of that voice that is actually booming through the vibration and clearing up the lies or helping create lights in the darkness because of the fact that it is that vibrational frequency that we needed to hear at those exact moments and times and through the power of your voice. That's why sometimes if you notice we talk very like because that person may have needed that vibration from you.
Yeah.
Or like all of a sudden you tone down and your voice is more somber, more solemn. That person needed that vibration from you at that point. Or we get more excited. Because if you notice it, I may not be singing right now, and y'all may not be singing right now, but we are still vibrationally creating an art that awakens a part of our soul through our authenticity, through people who are a part of that coming together. So
Yeah.
I hope that answers your question in kind of a roundabout way. But yes,
No,
I
really.
wholeheartedly believe that once we realize that our true power falls in the fact that once we realize that nature and whatever we believe in really does want to help us, and it is working with us and trying to support us, and we start asking it the questions, it will start working to consciously show us this is where I am and this is who I am.
You know what's wild is for instance, there's something about you that I see also in Austin. You talked about listening, listening to that. You both are great listeners, but I think you also speak so loudly. And I'm not just talking about with just the words. But your energies are very strong, very bold. A lot of people talk about, like, they have an aura field or what have you, how far that reaches out. And I see that in both of you. You both have that je ne sais quoi, that thing that reaches out beyond you. And I think, I don't know, do you think that that's a possibility, that there is a piece of you that reverberates just as strongly as your voice? Because you talk about, when you speak, the mountains will move. Do you think that your energy can also do the same thing?
Oh gosh, yes. I've learned one of the main things I've learned with counseling clients is that it's my presence that's healing, not necessarily what I say. They actually just want to be seen, heard, and understood, if even for a moment. I mean, I can give them all the right tools, and that's great. And I do, don't get me wrong. But I've noticed that just me being there and listening and actually seeing them, the reason that they did the action or the core part of their soul, that was actually the most healing component. And that's actually the feedback I've gotten from every client I've ever counseled is that you saw me when no one else saw me. And that was what helped free
Oh,
me.
Mm,
Because we cage ourselves in lies
yes.
and nobody ever sees us. And when somebody's finally seen, there's this point that's like, oh my God, I'm real. Oh my God, I can be that person. Somebody just accepted the real me, the mess me, the me. And I didn't get judgment and I didn't get stoned and I didn't get chaos. And I was loved for being just me. Because
Mhm.
we're taught that we have to be something or do something, that an act is what gets us love, not just being.
You know what came
that
to
is so
mind? You know
powerful.
Monique, the comedian? Monique. I was listening
Yeah.
to one of her interviews, and she was saying about who touched her when she was younger, in a sense of touching her heart, her soul, her mind, to inspire her, to make her feel how you're describing that loving moment. I believe, you have to fact check me on this. I think it was Patti LaBelle, the singer. Um, I think it was Patti LaBelle, she said, but she wait after at the end of her concert or her show, she would stand up and she would like wait for whoever wanted to get in line, and she would hug them, each person.
Oh my
And
God.
Monique said when it was her turn to go up to hug Patty, she just hugged her and she felt so recognized, so loved, so um when someone just gives you that present moment, that 100% undivided attention. And that was the same attention and recognition she gave to each person that came there, because because that is who she is. She isn't who she is without everyone else around her. It's about building up those relationships, and that, to see that you recognize that and to share that with us is so powerful, you know, and that is something that we aspire. I know I aspire, and I know Lizzie aspires to do every single day with our own, starting with our roots first at home in order to produce fruits in our work and whatever we do. And that goes so unrecognized as well, so I want to recognize that you do
Thank
share and
you.
that you do that for your patients, your clients in therapy, that they feel seen. And that's so powerful, to feel seen.
I just have to echo that, Austin. Like everything that you just said, I want to say this about Crimson, you have been so vulnerable. You have been so open and so honest with us about where you come from and your heart and your purpose. And, you know, sharing some of these painful insights, they can also be some of the most profound and empowering for other people because you don't know who's receiving them. You don't know whose life you're touching or like who is going to be, able to build strength and find their new path and feel seen and you sharing these things. And
Well,
I think that that's just something that's so incredible. And I feel so blessed that we're able to share this and listen to you and learn from you.
number one, I want to say thank you to both of you, honestly, because I do spend most of my life. Well, they say that you become who you needed when you were little. You become the person that was absent for you or exactly what you needed. And I spent a lot of my life, and I think that innate driver that I've had to come to realize is that I want to make the world feel seen because I've never really felt seen myself. And so I want to say thank you for actually seeing me because that doesn't happen for me very often. So I want to say thank you to both of you for that. And that is an energetic blessing to
I just
myself.
got
So
the
thank you.
goosebumps. I just got the goosebumps, and I just feel like this was like spiritually given and equally receiving, and like it was just a spiritual divine appointment. Like when you
Yeah.
get people together who are on the same wavelength, and Lizzie, you are on the same wavelength.
Yes, you are. You
All
are such
right.
a
Uh,
beautiful
I tell you
soul.
since I met you,
uh,
you are, and I'm
uh-huh.
your petals are opening up like
The
this, and the
flowers
flowers
blooming. I
get
told you,
showing,
you
but
make
one
people
petal at a
bloom.
time.
I know
You
she
know?
speaks so highly of everybody, and I think that you have such a beautiful energy yourself.
Oh, thank you
Like
so
that
much.
is
Do
like the spirit of like just like uplifting everybody. Like I don't know if you know that, but that's a gift in itself.
it is. Yes, it is a gift,
Well,
Lizzie.
I,
See?
I love people, and I think this is the funny thing. I see that in both of you as well. You both love people. You're not afraid to give compliment and to acknowledge people and in their true form, and their gifts. And I see so much love in both of you, and there's so much love to give. Crimson, I'm coming back to this thought that you had put out earlier about when you go to the grocery store, you make sure you give that attention and that time to the person that you're talking to, the cashier or whoever's helping you bag. You're being present for those people. Nobody really thinks about being present for the people that are, just the people that you pass by in your day-to-day life. That is so important, so crucial. And that is something that I think if that's one thing that we can do today, that's something that we can learn from and start doing today. If you're not doing
Thank
that,
you.
start doing it.
No, thank you. And you have, I want to hype you up a little bit too, though, because both of you are such beautiful, kind souls, and I appreciate both of you for making me feel, I consider myself a vulnerable person, but I have limits to my vulnerability, if that makes
Yeah,
any sense. So
yeah, yeah,
I appreciate y'all for allowing me to, giving me that space to feel like it's safe to be vulnerable, because I normally don't talk as much about my spiritual side. I can get a little like, ugh, I'm fixing to be judged so harsh for that. And so like, just generally my innate vibration of that is like,
yeah, yeah.
and it's just because I have in the past been judged extremely harshly. And so I've learned that
So have we.
and it's funny because,
Yeah.
you're talking about love of people. And I was like, I love people, but I hate them. But I've learned that it is my trauma that
Yeah,
hates them. It's my
yeah,
pain and that, that part of me that's been completely that I have to every day. They talk about like they say which one's stronger, the one that was always meek and never learned to be a beast, or the one that knew it could be a beast and decided to be meek. And I've always had to remember that is that it reminds me to choose that version of me that's like to gain understanding and like Austin said even earlier too, that extra compassion that sometimes we just know not what we do. And that if we realized the absolute harm we were causing to another soul, we wouldn't be doing it. But half the time it's because so much harm has been caused to you that you have gone to this side of what I actively have to fight myself against sometimes of like, you know what? I hate people. People are mean. I'm gonna go hide. But I
Yes.
actively remind myself that at my true core soul, I love humans. I love to heal them. I love love. And one of the things that I feel like Spirit's been working on me the most is learning the art of just unconditionally loving a soul. Because it's easy to love someone when they love you, but it is so hard when they're being a butt to love them.
It is, and that's why I want to just share just a nice post-it note reminder for listeners about nature. And yes, you can, there's spell work, there's prayers, there's because we are nature, we come from nature, and
We
to
do.
respect nature is not to commit idolatry. It's not, you have to decolonize your mind. And from
Mhm.
Judeo-Christian traditional far right values that are archaic. That is not to denounce the beauty or the true compassionate art form of those religions, but to denounce the archaic, rigidity of it, because so many countries who follow suit have an issue of polluting the environment around them. And so many other smaller countries, which are great in significance, that do not follow that Judeo-Christian, system. I can't find one or two so far that have ever had an issue with their environment of a dirty river, dirty water, you know, tarnished soil where they can't grow their crops because they're so in tune with nature and honoring the animals and plants around them. And that is a true form of really, in my opinion, from in my where I'm plant my feet at this moment, is to start with nature, start with plants, and build yourself up to loving yourself through that. And then that's how I found to blossom into, other people. And like our great host here, who you should definitely seek out if you need any mental health, treatment or someone to talk to. You're a great soul. You really are. You truly are a great soul. And I want you to know that, like, just, I want to say it again because you are, through your podcast. I just love that you're in a beautiful way, kind of like taking a feather and just tapping someone on the side of the head. And you're just saying, hey, think of things like this, or look at this insight, and those are things that need to be highlighted in our society and need to be the norm. And there needs to be a shift into that, is to have these kind of conversations as the norm, at lunch or at coffee time or just hanging out on FaceTime.
I can't agree with you more, Austin. Crimson, this is something else that I also agree with. I feel like you have
Y'all
a
are gonna make me cry.
powerful, you have a very powerful like
No, not
ability to
like bad cry, but
free
just like
people of their limiting
emotional.
beliefs. You free people of their limiting beliefs. I'm so glad you're feeling this because this is part of getting to the heart, and this is who we are at the end of the day. You get to see who you really are. And Austin is somebody that he really loves people. He loves the environment. He wants to caretake people. I think one time he's like, I'm a mama bear, and I love that.
I am the mama
you
bear
know,
of the friend group if we ever go out. I don't know why. I got
uh-huh.
vitamin B
So
complex, Tylenol,
I've gotta
bottles of
be this
water.
person. What are y'all's signs?
I'm a Leo. She's an Aquarius.
We're the
Okay,
opposite,
fine.
north and
Hey,
south.
but air and fire get along amazing.
Uh-huh. He burns it up. I stir it around.
Yeah.
I love it. I love that you just said that. I do burn it up and you do stir it around. But
Uh-huh.
we give each other, we know how to give each other space too, And that's what's even, I don't
Yeah.
know. We flow with it.
We feed each other too.
We
That's the other
feed each
thing.
other.
I love y'all's vibes together. And I just want to say too,
What sign are you?
just kind of as that point is just that, number one, the reason I was getting kind of emotional is because I'm used to being that sounding board and that reflective mirror for other people. I don't think I just at this moment realized I am not used to receiving that information or that space back because it's like, oh damn, that's what that feels like. Like
You
that's kind
created
of
intimacy.
No,
yeah, right. Like
no.
I don't get that very frequently. And I think it's just because in my line of work, that's generally what I'm doing. And so like I really appreciate that from y'all. And you both have such kind, beautiful souls. And I love how you care so much about the environment and nature and just the world around you, and then just how uplifting y'all are to other souls. Because I really and truly, honestly, with the bottom of my heart and all of my soul, I'm a Cancer, so that's why I'm so emotional. But
I love it.
my moon
I
is
love
in
it too. July
Scorpio. I mean,
Cancer.
not Scorpio, in Sagittarius, so that's why I'm so
My moon
fiery.
is in Sagittarius too, and her moon is
Ah,
in Aries.
Mm-hmm.
All fire, moon's men. Well, they say your sun
Uh-huh.
sign's the mask you wear to the world, but your moon sign, who you really are inside.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I never
she's an
heard that.
Aries. I'm definitely a Sag inside for sure.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I feel that. I'm like, oh my God, how can I breathe your passions to life? Like, how can we? No, but but I love the dynamic of the two of you and how you flow together and just how you balance off of each other. I've got to say, guys, I know for everybody that follows me, that's really that they're looking for that vulnerability and just that heart and that core and that soul. And y'all know I say this all the time. I'm a follower of souls, not a follower of, anything else. And these are souls that I love to see this type of soul win. Because so frequently in today's society, I feel like that type of soul gets overlooked. And so I really love it when I'm able to be a part of the energy that helps that kind of soul win. And when I'm allowed to just be in that energy, because I believe that when we're in the energy of souls like us, that's where we're truly recharged and where truly our voice is magnified and carried through both time, distance, and space, no matter where we are. And so I think that is beautiful, you guys.
I'm gonna write that down on a note, like a little notepad or note card. Our voice is carried through time, distance, sound, and space. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost
That's
like
so
we
beautiful.
call to
Thank
each
you.
other. I believe that
Mhm.
vibration and that energy that we send out, it calls it to
Yes.
us. Because if you
Yes,
And
ever notice, if you really want something, it seems to come.
it's
yes,
true. I cannot agree more.
when your heart is in
Eh,
the right place,
Yeah,
when
That's
it
it's
does
like
it.
take that
true,
authentic.
when it's yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I'm
Yeah.
not in the right space and I ask for something, it's nowhere near me. But like when you're in your core, like actual frequency and your authenticity and that soul space of yours, and you're asking for something, generally speaking, before this interview, I prayed for validation. I was like, okay, God, am I really doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Because sometimes I feel like my words just get lost. And then
Yeah.
through it, what have y'all told me? That my words weren't being lost.
No.
Oh, you see, answers to other people, listening in here. Yes, I love how you just tied that full, like back full circle. I just, wow, yes.
One of the things that I'm so impressed with
I just saw a
is,
yellow butterfly right
oh my
there.
gosh, are
It
you
was, and it
serious?
just went
Another one?
it went back to where it flew from. Yeah, yellow,
What is
really
going
yellow.
on? What is
I'm sorry to
going on? This
interrupt,
is
but I just had
wild.
to say, Lizzie, you're not looking around for other butterflies now, are you? Like, oh,
I'm like, oh my
Now I
gosh,
yeah, you
realize that
said
I'm
yours
what?
earlier.
inside and I'm like, oh
Okay,
man, I
she
can't
just
find the
said
butterflies.
validation, confirmation. I
But if
just
you look
thought
at my wall, there's moths and butterflies all over the
I was
place.
gonna wear my butterfly pants, but I switched because I was like, these are too heavy for a hot
Oh my
day.
gosh,
But
You
you should have
were?
worn butterfly pants.
yeah,
Oh my gosh.
it's the same ones I was wearing when I posted my artwork.
Yes.
Yeah, and that
I
was
actually
yeah.
saw that picture and fell in love with those pants. I was like, oh my God, I love those pants. I've almost learned that butterflies, like when I see butterflies, I'm like, oh, that's like my sign that like I'm like following where I'm supposed to. I'm like following the trail of butterflies. Like, don't make fun of me, but like that's like my
No, no, there's nothing to make
I just
fun
got
I
of.
the
follow the
goosebumps and
sprinkle
chills
of
again.
butterflies, man.
Yes.
Well, I think it's so, we were talking about earlier, owls and butterflies. Those are both messengers. Those are symbolically, historically across cultures, those are messengers. And I think when you see those, or even if you get like a little feather in your path, you're getting a message. We may not know what that message is, but we know we're receiving it and we're open to receiving it,
Just
you
trusting
know.
is what just I've learned just to I see it now. I'm like I just trust. I put my head down and okay, I trust. Whatever. I'm being guided, whatever.
Y'all
Just
know
trust,
something
right?
beautiful about a butterfly? And like
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
trust is like if you take the DNA of a caterpillar, it shows up as a butterfly. So at all times,
Oh,
even as a caterpillar, you are always a butterfly. You just haven't reached your full transformation yet.
I
my
love
gosh.
that.
I'm gonna put that on a note, put that
In the
on my mind.
notepad, okay.
Yeah, I'm putting that in the pad.
And so you were always that
We're gonna be
beautiful
quoting
butterfly.
you
We
in
just
our
don't realize it
episodes.
yet sometimes.
Yes.
Oh no,
Yes.
we lost Lizzie.
Yeah, well, those things I'm gonna have on my notepad. Our sound carries through distance, time, and space, and you know, and DNA in the of a butterfly and a caterpillar, Lizzie. Lizzie, you are a butterfly.
I know, I
Stop
think
thinking
we
you're a
lost
caterpillar.
her. Oh, there she is. She's coming
Oh,
back.
did we lose her? Oh, okay.
Yeah, we lost her for a second. I was like, oh no, we lost you. Can you hear us?
Lizzie, can you hear us?
We can't hear you.
Oh, is she? Oh, her mic is off. Lizzie, you gotta turn your mic on. I see it's red with a line through it.
I think she's
Oh,
frozen.
oh well.
Oh, there we go.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm back. Okay, sorry. I got
Yay!
kicked off. I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening?
No, I was like, oh no, we lost her.
I'm so sorry. I hate to do that at the end of the recording. You're gonna have to cut that.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
no.
I'm just like, what happened? No, okay, I got kicked off. Oh well. So
But no,
sorry.
you guys, I'm so sorry I have taken up so much of y'all's time today. It's just been a pleasure and
No.
an absolute honor speaking with the both of you. And guys, please remember that the best way to support your favorite artists is to just share their content, share their material. All the links will be below in the description. Please make sure you
Yes.
check them out. Send them and their souls lots of love and lots of light and lots of appreciation for coming on and giving you a little moonlight. Thank you guys so much. Y'all have anything else y'all want them to know before we go?
Yes. Intimacy is spelled with SEE, so INTIMAC. Intimacy, and we're on Spotify podcasts, and you might have to cut that part out. I just had a brain fart, just have to say.
No, you're
I
good.
didn't spell Intimacy. I was like spelling it. I was like, yeah, that's gonna go south. Okay, but yes, follow our Instagram, follow our our handle for Spotify. It's all going to be provided in the links below. And thank you so much for allowing us to be here and also giving us a platform to share our inner lives with you and all of your
Thank you.
listeners.
Thank you for having us,
Yes.
Crimson. We're so happy to be on board.
Yes, and thank you so much for y'all's vulnerability and for trusting me to be that space for y'all to share that. And just thank you so much for your kind souls and for the work that you are doing, because I don't believe that that goes unnoticed. And I really think that if more souls were like that, we would all realize that we are not so alone in this world. And part of the problem is we feel so isolated and so alone in our pain.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate what y'all are doing in rehumanizing the world and re-helping people know that it's okay to be human, because we beat ourselves up for being human every day. And for what? Because we're human. We're bound to make mistakes. We're bound to wear masks. We're bound to do all of those things. Why should it be something that we are so ashamed of? And so I think that it is beautiful what you guys are doing. So thank you all so much for following that soul's calling and for listening to it and responding to the universe when it called you, because it can be so hard to answer the call.
You're welcome.